Batman, how did you get here?
Never mind that. Let's get to that cabin.
Hey everybody, welcome back. This is David from Atomic Candy, and right now I am open by chance, and what I am opening up with for you here today is the MEZCO 1/12 Collective Batman Ascending Knight. Batman Ascending Knight, and this one has already been opened. As you can tell, there's no plastic bag on this. They usually come in a plastic bag, and then they have another plastic wrap around the cardboard sleeve. But those are not there because this is coming to me secondhand, courtesy of Karen. Thank you, Karen. Karen decided that she didn't want this anymore. What's wrong with you? Well, the reason that she did that is because there is actually 3 versions of the Ascending Knight Batman. The black one, which you see pictured here, a blue one, where it's all blue highlights, you know, blue cape, blue cowl, you get the idea. And then there is now an Oinks edition, which I believe is a PX exclusive, Oinks edition. And essentially what that means is where you see all the black on the costume, it's like this shiny rubberized finish. So it looks reflective, it looks shiny. But hey, I'll be a sanctuary to your MEZCO 112s all day long. If you don't want them, you can send them to the post office box down below and I will take good care of them. Anyways, again, thanks for that. I did a trade with Karen and I got this now. And I'm going to be going ahead and opening this up and examining this. Just go ahead and take that sleeve off. And it's got the bit of cellophane inside as well. There's always a cellophane over another piece of cellophane, a thin sheet that goes over the cello window like that to help to protect it from getting scuffed up. And I'll point out again, because I've noticed this recently, that often now the MEZCO 112s, they come in this window box instead of the traditional box that we've come to know. See, there's the MEZCO logo on the back. That is the hinged box that is inside the sleeve traditionally. They've kind of been doing away with that recently. All of the newer MEZCOs that I've been reviewing, they've been in a box like this, a standard window box, which is fine, I guess, if you want to display just the figure without opening it. This gives you the option of just being able to put it on the shelf like that if you're the type of person that just can't take it out of the box. Keeping in mind, of course, that primarily I am an in-the-box collector, but I do make exceptions when it comes to MEZCO 112 figures and 1/6 scale figures like Hot Toys or 3/0, things like that. I don't have a problem opening those up and taking them out, displaying them, or doing a review on them, because if I ever needed to, I could pack it back up the way I found it. So we will be taking this apart today. And we're going to start by opening the bottom flap of the box, which is pretty simple. I just normally take a knife and I'll stick it in the bottom flap and just give it a little turn. See how easy that is? That way you don't have to bend the box all up to get your figure out. See, ages 18 and up. Ages 18 and up, not for children. Ha! No fun for you kids. You don't get to play with this. I do. Open this up and there'll be a series of trays underneath. And if you're familiar with these, you know what you're looking at already. There's the instructions. Well, not really instructions, but more of a warning. And the MEZCOs all come with this now as well. And it's just a warning that this is not really a toy, so don't be rough with it, because if you break it up, we're not going to help you. Put the box right there. And go ahead and start popping these trays out. Now, you still can't see him very well because of the clamshell that's over the top. We'll lift that off and give you a better look at the Ascending Knight Batman. I'm not going to tip this too much because I don't want things to fall out. He has a lot of batarangs. There are 10 batarangs in here under this strip of tape. I think that's a bit much. I don't know what he's going to do with 10 of them. Grappling hook gun. There's a bunch of other things, but we'll be taking a closer look at the accessories when we get him up out of there. There's another set of trays underneath in the back. And there you find your 1/12 Ziploc bag, the cables for his cape, which I don't like the cables. I've already talked about that. I showed the cables and tried to demonstrate working with them with the Red Sun Superman that I did the review of. It's a nightmare to work with those cables. The cable stand which clips onto the arm. And now we're just going to go ahead and get him out of there and stand him up and take a look at his accessories close up.
Let's get out of here. The Batman!
And we are back with our MEZCO 112 Collective Ascending Knight Batman in black. In black. Not the Yoinks, not the blue, although the Yoinks and the blue editions are basically the same thing. Close-up of Batman's head and the cowl. Kind of reminds me of the 1943 Batman. 1943 Batman played by Lewis Wilson? Which was a movie serial. And for those of you who are not familiar with what a serial is, or was, it was a movie short that was a series that would be played before the regular feature film would start in a movie theater. Back before there was TV, and going to the movies was an all-day event. You'd pay whatever you pay, and you'd watch a bunch of serials, and you'd watch a film, and you'd watch some other serials, and you'd watch another film. You could watch Batman, and then The Little Rascals, and then maybe Shazam, and Rocket Men on the Moon. And it was episodes, because they tied together, and that's also where the term cliffhanger comes from. And the 1943 Batman had 13 episodes. And it was basically war propaganda. This cape is really big. I'll open it up for you here in a moment. It was war propaganda because it was World War II, and the main villain was Japanese. Although he was not really Japanese. Let me open this cape up. Look at that. That is huge. And I'll lift up the cape so that you can take a look at his back. You see that he's got a spot there on the back of his belt to clip accessories to. The belt does not come off. The entire costume is completely attached to his body. It's not going to come off. Anyway, the villain was a Japanese guy, and his name was Dr. Daka. Is that right, Dr. Daka? I'll have to look that up. I think it was Dr. Daka. I have the serials on DVD. And it was anti-war propaganda, and actually kind of racist against the Japanese as well. And there's a lot of really rough language, particularly from Batman. Phrases that you would never expect him to say. That if you don't have earlier versions of the film or unedited versions, you'll never hear it because a lot of that language has been edited out over the years. Which I'm sure fit the mood at the time, but you know, looking back on it, it's really a foul blot on American history. Getting off of the soapbox here, don't mean to give too much of a history lesson. Take a look at some of his accessories here. Start off with this gigantic weapon. In 1965, the entire 1943 serial was played as a film in theaters. And the title of the film was An Evening with Batman. See how this is? And it's got a hinge. And he can hold this in his fists, some kind of a fighting tool, an edged weapon of some sort. It played in theaters in 1965 as a film, and was so widely received, because remember, no one had seen this since the 40s. It's a grappling hook, and another grappling hook, and this one has a cable. See, there's a cable attached to it, but the cable is still taped on. I'm not going to unravel that, I don't think either. So popular, in fact, was the serial being played again, grappling hook gun. I'll show you the side view, that it inspired the television series, the 1966 Batman with Adam West. It's a lot of detail on the gun. And a hole for the grappling hooks to insert into, so you can do like that. Inspired the 1966 series. It's a pair of gripping hands. Of course, the fists are always on the figure. And he has a total of 7 hands. Sort of like motorcycle or tactical looking gloves in a gripping position. And these are pretty solid. Sometimes these gripping hands are kind of rubberized, but these are really solid, so I would be careful inserting tools or weapons into those hands. Grappling or grasping hands. Adam West's 1966 Batman's one of my favorites. It's a shame that they couldn't keep going with the series. And here is your trigger finger hand for the grappling gun. You only get one, so Batman's going to have to be right-handed. There's your arm for putting him in more dynamic poses. And then, of course, this piece is for the cables for suspending his cape. There's the batarangs. And what I've done is I just peeled the tape. These are on a piece of tape. See? And I peeled it up because they're small and fragile and I don't want them lost or broken. But you get 10. And like, does he need 10? Well, I guess he does. And here's your 112 Collective Ziploc bag. 5 cables that I don't like because it's difficult, at least I have a hard time, getting the cape to pose properly with them. There you have a wrist crossbow launcher. And it looks like a repeater because you see there's a little belt with bolts underneath, which I don't know how that's supposed to work. I've used a mini crossbow. I've never seen one like that. There's your Bruce Wayne head for if you want him to take the cowl off. I'm surprised they didn't give him a battle damaged head. I think a battle damaged head would have worked nicely with this figure. And a closed grappling hook for the gun. Nice figure overall, and I'm going to take this off and test his articulation here, and then we'll see if we can get him into a pose. So I'll take him off, and I didn't have too much trouble with the foot peg because you see on the bottom there's holes, but they put the holes in the middle of the foot rather than in the heel like they normally do, and it does fit better on the peg. Sometimes with some of these figures they don't want to go on the pegs. Again, he has this gigantic cape, which I guess is great for if you want to totally fold him over or pose him perched. One thing I wanted to point out really quickly here is, what did I do with that piece? This plastic blow mold that he rests in, the cape goes through this slot, but these edges are sharp. So when you pull him out, don't just pull him out because the cape hangs through this hole and goes behind him. I would roll it up and pull him through slowly so that these sharp edges don't peel any of this finish off, because this can crack and split and everything else. So watch out for that when you take him out. Now let's take a look at his head. Head movement Whoops. Well, that answers that question. Very limited. The neck joint moves around a lot, but the head movement side to side isn't so bad. Up and down doesn't want to work very well. There, that's better, that's better. So the head movement's not so bad. And I imagine it'll be about the same for the other head. Actually, we can go ahead and try it. That came off and on really easily, and it's got a nice fat peg on it. Some of these have a really, really thin peg, and that makes me nervous. So let's put the Bruce Wayne head on there. It's good movement on the head. Shoulders open up nicely. They're not being restricted by the costume. That's another common problem with these kind of figures, is the costume causes a lot of restriction in the movement, but the costume here is very flexible. The emblem is not a sticker. The emblem is actually a solid piece that's been attached to the front of the costume. I like that feature. I like that it stands out like that. Torso movement is good. Side to side is a little restricted, but forward and backwards pretty decent. Again, the belt does not come off. Elbows appear to be double jointed, so you can get a good bend there. He's a muscular figure. Wrist movement, not bad either. Good wrist movement. Then again, he doesn't have gauntlets. Usually when they have a big, like, forearm piece, that restricts a lot of the hand movement. And we'll see about changing the hands out in a minute, see how difficult that is. There's a little bat bulge there. Nice going, MEZCO. Hip movement, hey, that's not bad at all. Good flexibility in the hips. That's another huge problem. A lot of these figures, the hips, they don't move. But he appears to have a lot of hip flexibility here. So that's a good deal. I like that. Double jointed knees. So when I say double jointed, I mean it's got the knee piece and then a hinged on both ends. So then instead of just bending once like that, you can get a second bend so that his heel comes up closer to his quadricep or his buttocks. Heel pivot and angling. Angles inside good, but doesn't want to angle to the outside too much. Forward and backward isn't bad. So pretty good range of motion on this figure. One thing I would watch out for in the posing though is that you see these gray spots are actually rubberized spots that have been painted onto or affixed onto the costume itself, onto the costume material. Watch out for that splitting or cracking. So why don't we get Batman up into a pose and see how he looks. And we are back with our MEZCO 112 Collective Ascending Knight Batman in a dynamic pose up on his stand. I did manage to get a couple of the cables under his cape. I could not get them clipped, however, because you see there is like a little gripping device that you're supposed to be able to put the cape into, but I couldn't get it to cooperate. As a matter of fact, one of these even came off because it's just a wire stuck inside of this peg, and the peg doesn't want to hold on to this one. But I've had a lot of trouble with these. They work better if you can rest them under the cape somehow, like that. But we got them in a dynamic pose. I wanted to point out also that with the hands, I did not have too much trouble swapping the hands out on the wrist peg. The wrist peg is actually pretty solid on this one. I like that, because there are a lot of problems with wrist pegs on these types of figures, not just the MEZCO, but 1/6 scale figures as well, where the wrist joints, they snap off, and then you're screwed. And with the MEZCO 112, you can't get replacement wrist pegs as far as I know. That one came off and on really easily as well. And I was worried about getting the accessories into their hands because because his hands were so rigid, but they did slip into the hands fairly easily. I didn't have too much difficulty with that, and I just wanted to point that out. No difficulty with the posing. Actually, this one is really flexible, and I like that. So you can do a lot with this Batman as far as posing is concerned. As you can see, he's mopping up a few WWE wrestlers here. We'll get around to the back of this, and you can see the cables that I put up under there to suspend the cape. Doesn't look too pretty from this end, does it? But you can get a good idea of his posability from underneath there. So I do like this one. I like this figure. I like all of them, really, but some of them are really kind of stiff, and so you have that question that you have to ask yourself: what's more important, the physical appearance of the figure or the posability of it? But all in all, MEZCO does do a really high quality job with their 1/12 collective series of figures. I'm a big fan of these. So what do you think of the Ascending Knight Batman? And right now, since there's an exclusive Oinks edition, as of the time of posting this video, you can probably find the black or the blue version for at least the original retail price, and MEZCO usually sells these for around $80 a piece. And they're typically about 6 3/4 inches tall, or comparable to Marvel Legends or DC Multiverse or WWE figures, as you see here. They're about the same size, but there is a huge difference when it comes to the quality of the figure. And again, of course, they're made primarily to be posed, not to be necessarily played with. Like with these other figures, you could get a lot of playwear out of these wrestlers, but you're not going to get as much playwear out of Batman because he's too fragile. He will eventually break if you're rough with him. Which is why you get this now, because I guess people have been breaking these, and MEZCO's like, come on, what are you thinking, guys? Anyway, what do you think of the Batman Ascending Knight? Is this a figure that you would be interested in? Is this something that you would want to add to your collection? I like it. I'm glad I picked this one up. I'm really into the MEZCO 1/12 anyways. No, I don't work for MEZCO. Wish I did. Hey MEZCO, you watching? Yeah, right. There's a lot of people that are really into these figures. Let me know what you think of the Ascending Knight Batman in the comments section down below. I would like to see them do a Michael Keaton. I'd like to see them do a Michael Keaton version of Batman in 1/12 size. I'd also like to see an Adam West version. I'm a big fan of the classic 1966 Batman. I know the 1966 Batman's been done quite a bit, especially since the passing of Adam West. But I would like to see how they would do it in the 1/12 format. So let me know what you think of the figure down below. Check out some of the other videos. I have a lot of MEZCO 1/12 reviews. You can find that in the playlists section, as well as a lot of other stuff. We do a lot of things on this channel besides reviews. Check it out. Like the video if you got something out of it. I sure hope you did. Subscribe if you're new. Check out some of the other videos. Remember, the more of you there are, the more we can do here. Open by Chance on Instagram. If you haven't found us on Instagram yet, check us out there. And I will see you again soon. Thanks for watching.
Here we are, home sweet home. Make our friend comfortable. Don't you like our little place? We think it's very cozy.
What were those?
Just some of my bats. Hope they didn't disturb you, but you see it's nearing their feeding time.
You don't mind being left here alone with them, do you?
I'm sure he won't.
Wait a minute. Don't leave me here alone. I'll talk. I'll tell you everything I know.